Welcome, dear viewers, to a new episode addressing one of the most controversial topics in the global intellectual arena. We hope you are ready for a deep exploratory journey into views that might be shocking and provocative to many, but are necessary for understanding the reality of the intellectual clash between rationalism and faith in our era. Today, we shed light on the ideas of one of the most famous and prominent scientists in the field of evolutionary biology, whose fame has surpassed the boundaries of science to reach the realms of philosophy and atheism. We are set to present the views of Richard Dawkins, this controversial British thinker who was born in 1941. He gained worldwide fame with his most famous book, The God Delusion, in which he attacked all religions, but dedicated a significant and direct portion of his scathing critique specifically to concepts related to Islam. Since his early appearances as a writer on issues of religion and atheism, Dawkins has expressed a firm belief that religion, in its essence, represents a genuine obstacle to the progress of science and free, independent thinking. He views religions as a form of a mental virus capable of infecting minds, preventing them from achieving independent thinking based on logic and questioning. In a striking expression he used in many of his essays and lectures, Dawkins described how these religions are transmitted from generation to generation, exactly like viruses that infect minds and survive on fear, obedience, and indoctrination. Among all the religions Dawkins criticized, Islam was strongly present at the heart of this intellectual attack. He went so far as to describe Islam as representing the greatest force for evil in the world today. When Dawkins uttered this harsh phrase in a radio interview, he clarified that he did not mean that all Muslims are necessarily evil individuals, but rather that the criticism is primarily directed at the doctrines and ideas propagated through Islam. These teachings, in his view, are what produce widespread evil, and this evil is manifested in several areas, most notably the systematic treatment of women, the clear disdain for homosexuality, and the practice of killing in the name of religion itself. Despite the widespread condemnation this statement provoked, Dawkins repeatedly confirmed that he does not apologize for it, but rather insists on his stance.
What greatly surprises Dawkins is not only the explicit texts he sees promoting discrimination against women or non-believers, but how Islam is treated in contemporary culture as a sacred religion immune to criticism and accountability. For him, merely criticizing this religion being considered an intellectual crime is unacceptable. Therefore, Dawkins affirmed in his statements that Islam, according to his view, is not a respectable or merciful religion. He bases this on his belief that the core of its texts contains active hostility towards women and homosexuals, and towards anyone who dares to think differently. Dawkins elaborated on his criticism regarding the position of women, pointing out that there is active hostility toward women promoted clearly in the sacred books of Islam. He believes that the Quran and the prophetic traditions, Hadith, are full of texts that confirm clearly and without hesitation that a woman is inferior to a man, citing specific rulings such as her testimony being considered half the testimony of a man, and her being penalized for actions for which a man is not penalized. Consequently, Dawkins views Islam, in the essence of its teachings, as a religion that promotes sexual discrimination, calling for the restriction of a woman's freedom in dress, behavior, and education, ultimately making her a subordinate, not an independent being. In this context, Dawkins considers the hijab, which is presented in the name of modesty and piety, to be in reality a symbol of men's control over women and an explicit declaration of discrimination, stressing that no religion that claims to be merciful can begin by discriminating against half of humanity. Dawkins also addressed the issue of homosexuality, noting that Islamic teachings, although sharing hostility towards homosexuals with other Abrahamic religions, appear more fierce and explicit in Islam. Dawkins claims that this hostility goes to the extent of justifying killing and punishment in the name of religion itself. In defending his right to criticize, Dawkins referenced the cancellation of an event for him in San Francisco due to his statements against Islam. He asserted that he did not attack people, but directed his criticism at ideas. He clarified that he criticized the horrible hatred of women and homosexuals in Islam, and strongly criticized the idea of killing apostates simply because they left the faith. Dawkins bitterly questioned, has criticizing killing become a crime? Has objecting to injustice become an offense?
For Dawkins, the fundamental problem does not lie with Muslims as individuals, but with Islam as an idea and a system. He pointed out that Islam is the one torturing Muslims before it tortures non-Muslims. He stressed that the first victims are Muslims who want to think freely. Commenting on the death penalty for apostasy, Dawkins clearly stated that when a person is killed because he changed his mind, that is evidence that the idea he is leaving has no arguments. He concluded that Islam punishes the apostate with death because it does not have what convinces him to stay within its framework. In a highly controversial tweet, Dawkins indicated that all the Muslims in the world have won fewer Nobel Prizes than those won by Trinity College, Cambridge alone. Although this tweet was described as condescending and racist, Dawkins defended his position, stating, "The issue is not race or genes, but culture." He stressed that this culture is what punishes free thinking and prevents questioning, a culture that considers science a danger and religion a protection. When Dawkins was asked for his opinion on whether he considered Islam more dangerous than Christianity, he replied, "At the present time, yes." He justified this by saying that Christianity, despite its past, has undergone reforms and its political influence has declined, whereas Islam still retains authoritative influence and considers itself above criticism and above the law. In another seminar, Dawkins asserted that if there is one religion that deserves to be criticized more than others today, it is Islam. The reason for this is that Muslims in many countries live under laws that punish intellectual freedom, prevent women from having their most basic rights, and consider atheism a crime punishable by death. His criticism extended to the text of the Quran, where he stated that when he reads the Quran, he finds nothing that encourages thinking, questioning, or compassion. Instead, he sees texts consisting of commands, prohibitions, penal codes, and rulings, as if the divine command does not want minds to think, but bodies to obey. Regarding the phenomenon of scientific miracles in the Quran, he describes it as a myth. He believes that anyone who claims the existence of scientific miracles in the Quran is deceiving himself. He explained that if this book were truly divine, it would have been expected to contain knowledge that humans could not access at that time, but it does not do that. He affirmed that what is called scientific miracles are merely desperate attempts to link vague texts to contemporary scientific things to convince people to believe.
Speaking about the spread of Islam, Dawkins stated, "It is wrong to say that Islam spread peacefully. History is very clear. Islam spread initially by the sword, by force and military conquests, not by intellectual persuasion or free dialogue." He described systems implementing Sharia law as terrifying, condemning the punishments carried out, such as flogging women, stoning the adulterer, cutting off the hand of the thief, and executing the apostate. He questioned, what kind of morals are these, considering this system not a religion of mercy, but a religion of punishment and control. He directed harsh criticism towards the ethics that allow a raped woman to be punished because she was not wearing enough clothes, describing these ethics as not human. They are remnants of primitive thought presented as revelation. In response to accusations of Islamophobia, Dawkins clarified that phobia is an irrational fear, whereas criticism of Islam, for him, is completely rational. He insisted on his right to hate ideas that legalize killing and reject texts that justify violence against women or against those who disagree in opinion. He affirmed that there is a fundamental difference between hating people and hating ideas. He stated that he does not hate Muslims, but he hates what Islam does to them, how they are prevented from thinking, and how children are indoctrinated from an early age that questioning is a sin. In this context, he considered the greatest intellectual crime to be naming a child Muslim from birth, because the child does not have the right to choose their religion. This intellectual identity is imposed upon them before they can speak, describing this as compulsory implantation of ideas rather than education. Dawkins believes that the problem is not limited only to the content of the texts, but also in the way these Islamic texts are treated as complete and untouchable. According to his view, any thought that prohibits criticism or interpretation is dead thought. He stressed that a society cannot progress if it considers its holy books above discussion, and that it is impossible for a real university or free scientific research to exist in a place where criticism of the Quran or Hadith is forbidden.
Dawkins concluded his future vision by stating that the Islamic world will not progress scientifically and intellectually and will remain at the bottom of nations unless it is liberated from the shackles of religious thought, because a religion that prevents questioning cannot produce knowledge. Dawkins affirmed that he presents this criticism not out of hatred, but driven by truth. He believes that the truth might be harsh and painful, but it is necessary. Concluding his talk, he asserted that the world will not achieve any real progress unless people dare to confront religions, and Islam is one of them, with logic and reason, not with fear. Thus, friends, we reach the end of our presentation of Richard Dawkins' most sharp and controversial ideas about Islam. These views place us before a harsh mirror, reflecting the clash of values between absolute thought based on revelation and absolute free thought based on science and logic. The goal of presenting these ideas is to open the door for deep and responsible questioning. If you found this discussion material worthy of debate, or if it raised fundamental questions for you about the relationship between religion, science, and civilization, we sincerely invite you to interact. Hit the like button to support purposeful content, and subscribe to the channel to receive all new videos that delve into these thorny intellectual issues. Most importantly, share your opinions and comments below. Do you agree with Dawkins that religion is a mental virus, or do you see his criticism as unjustified bias? Let the discussion begin with logic and respect. We will see you in the next episode, and until then, remain free thinkers.